Hey y'all, I had three of you take advantage of some extra credit, so I wanted to go ahead and answer your questions. And then, of course, if you want to send me follow up questions or later when you are job seeking, I'm definitely a resource for you. So don't feel like at the end of the class, this is it for advice. And of course, I'm giving you information partly based on what I've lived through, partly based on attending my own seminars for professional development. Some is from career services in CALS or the university. So a lot of different resources go into this advice. It's not just what I think. But we'll go ahead and get started. So hopefully this won't run too long. First question. How important are grades in a college transcript to companies after your graduation? So that's very role dependent. For an engineering student or a student going into research or a lab, they'd be much more important. For you all, for your first job, you might need to say what your GPA was or provide a transcript, but they're going to be a little bit less worried about GPA if you can demonstrate how your other experiences make up for that, maybe a little bit of a weakness. Maybe you had a bad semester, maybe you transferred from another institution, whatever was going on. Make sure that you are displaying other experiences, other attributes that kind of make up for that a little bit. Maybe you're a student who has to work full time, so you don't have as much time to devote to your studies. You can bring that up for sure in an interview if they ask about your GPA or it's something that's concerning you. Also, fit is going to matter more than your grades. A lot of employers these days are looking for the right cultural fit. And by that, I mean people that have the same values, which is why I had you think about your values during week one. If you're thinking about joining a company that is really into happy hours and going out and is very social, and you're more introverted, that could be a problem. Even if you have a 4.0, you can't change who you are. So they'd be, again, more worried about fit than a GPA in that case. So try not to stress over it too much. I promise it's not the end of the world if you don't have that 3.0 or 4.0. We can definitely help work on your resume, your cover letter, and interview skills to kind of glaze over some of that and show how you still are the right fit. And of course, employers that are hiring recent graduates know that there's going to be some training to go through with their new employees. So things like how to use certain systems, you can't even learn that in a classroom. Your GPA has no bearing on your ability to learn to use a system and do that, apply those skills. So try not to stress too much about it. Second, if you choose a job out of state, what should you consider? The first thing is cost of living and salary. So for those of you who grew up in North Carolina, like I was mentioning to someone yesterday, we do feel like cost of living is going up here, but compared to other states, we do have relatively low cost of living. I'll give you an example. I have a friend seeking a job similar to mine, and she was offered a job in Miami, Florida, and their pay was $32,000. I think we all know Miami, Florida does not have a super low cost of living, and if you add in lifestyle to that, restaurants and things like that, there's no way that she, as a single woman, could live alone on $32,000 4 states away from where she's been living for the last 8 years. So that's where cost of living comes into play. If they're offering you a salary package, go and look at what rent costs are in that town. And hopefully you've done your research ahead of time before you've even applied. But if you haven't, do that before committing to the job. Look at gas costs. Look at different lifestyles there. Some cities are great for nightlife if that's what you're interested in, and some are not. If you want a small town feel, do your digging. Of course, there's tons of websites devoted to all sorts of things like that. I probably don't even need to tell you. But think about your cost of living related to your salary, most critical. Can you support yourself there? Second, can you support yourself emotionally there? What is your support system? Are you moving there and you have no friends or family? Are you okay with that? If you're comfortable with that, that's great. Are you an extroverted person that's willing to go out there, kind of join those meetup groups, go out with new coworkers, find a new church and meet people? Or is that harder for you? It's okay if it is, but you want to keep that in mind. We definitely have a great resource with LinkedIn. So if you know you're moving to a new state, you could put in NC State Ag Business alums, or there's a couple groups like that, and you could connect with people in those areas so that you kind of know people ahead of time, get some recommendations on where to live, where not to live. But think about the kind of emotional support you think you're going to need. For some people, starting new jobs is super easy, no problem at all, and some it is difficult. So do keep that in mind. And then the company values. Again, do the company values meet yours? Because you're not just taking on a new job, you're taking on a new town and a new state possibly. So make sure that wherever you're going, you really think you could be happy there. Because it is hard to pack up and move away from home on that level. Okay, a lot of words here. Sorry, I'm trying to cram things together. Do companies look at class rank, and are minors taken into consideration? Again, class rank is a lot less frequent, especially because once you're in college, that means a lot of different things. Is it your class rank for every single student on campus, every single senior, everyone in your major, on and on? So class rank, it's almost unheard of. So try not to worry about that. Sorry, I have a little bit of a cold. And then minors, it depends on your role. So if you're looking for an accounting job that also requires you to be knowledgeable about economics and you got that economic minor, yeah, that's great. It really depends on the job responsibilities that you have. It's not a hard yes or no. So I'm assuming most of you in this class have decided on a minor, but if you haven't, that might help you a little bit if you think about what field you want to go into and whether or not the skills that our degree in ag business can provide you fill all of those needs, or I shouldn't say all, most of those needs. Okay? How often should I follow up with a company after an interview? Well, first of all, you should always send a thank you note after your interview. I hope you remember that from, I think it was week 3 or week 4 where we talked about interviewing, but always send a thank you note. Either email is the best way, unless they're a really traditional company. And then you get one additional follow-up. So a great question in an interview to ask is, what's your hiring timeline? Okay. And that will give you an idea. So if they say, we hope to have an answer for you within 2 weeks, and you haven't heard anything at the end of the 3rd week, you could follow up once with the hiring committee. However, after that, no more, even if they don't respond to you. Sometimes some companies, I know state entities cannot legally share much about the job process, so you may not get an answer at all. But if you start bugging them too much, that's going to be a red flag. And there's a number of things that can hold up hiring. Sometimes the process itself is just intensive. Sometimes somebody has a relative that passed away and they're kind of the next step in that process, so things get delayed. You got to be patient and you get one follow-up. Very, very rarely I've told a student, go ahead and follow up again, but that's on a case-by-case basis. I say one is a really nice rule. I broke this rule once and I didn't even want the job, but it was kind of a blow to my ego that I wasn't offered the job because I was pretty cocky about it. And I drove them crazy. So keep that in mind. Should I send a thank you note whether I get the job or not? So your thank you note is typically sent after the interview, so you don't need to send another. A lot of times, not a lot, I'd say 50-50. 50% of the time you're going to be sent a letter or an email once a different candidate is hired and they've assigned everything saying, sorry, there were a lot of great candidates. We regret we can't offer you the position. But the other 50% of the time, you get nothing ever again. But if you do get that letter or email, typically it's a form, so there's not much to respond to anyway. So be sure that you're sending that thank you note after you interview, not after you find out you did not get the job. Of course, if you get the job, you're going to be exchanging a lot of emails, thank you so much, etc. Okay, just a couple more slides. How much of an increase is too much to ask for when negotiating a salary? Depends on the job. I'm going to go ahead and tell you now. I've seen people miss out on state jobs because of this. And I bring up state jobs a lot because some of y'all are going to be interested in extension or working for the Department of Agriculture. So just keep in mind with a state job, there's very little wiggle room. There's a little bit, but not much. But for any other entity, you want to go look at websites like Glassdoor, agcareers.com, anything else like that that's going to show you starting salary for entry-level position in the area in which you're applying. And you want to keep that in mind. Let's say that you've been offered a position for $40,000, but you see that entry level typically get $46,000. That's going to help you kind of think about how much more you want to ask for. You also want to think about the benefits package that you're offered. So benefits are not calculated into a salary that you're offered. So if you're offered $40,000 salary, but you also get 401k matching, really amazing health insurance benefits, great time off. So that equals maybe, let's say, 10,000 extra a year. Your take home pay may be 40,000, probably less with taxes and savings, but let's say your actual salary says 40,000, but you're receiving a package of 50,000. So keep in mind the package before you go in to negotiate and really see what that's worth per year as well. And then if you really feel there's a discrepancy, you want to think about, this goes to number 7 really, what do you bring to the table? So you want to be polite, but what do you bring? Have you been a leader in FFA, and then you were Ag Business Club president, you were also a university ambassador, and you worked 30 hours per week specifically in this field assisting someone, so you know the job better than, an entry-level candidate. You can say all those things in a really nice way and say, I appreciate that offer. I've been thinking about it, and even with the benefits included, I really think I'm deserving of about 44,000 instead of 40,000, and that's because I have experience with A, B, and C, and I'm hoping that we can make that happen. Now, they're probably going to counter, and you're going to get something in between that. My best advice is don't go for anything outrageous. I think 5,000 is your max wiggle room. It's going to depend on the field. I've certainly taken on jobs where I've been told this is your salary, and when I ask about negotiation, they tell me we have capped out your salary. We literally don't have a penny more, but there is something we can do next year, and I got that in writing. So think about that as well. What's your growth opportunity? Are you going to start at 40,000, but within 5 years you could be up to 60,000? Might be worth it to take that job. But know what you bring to the table. Know your strengths and weaknesses. Okay. And I have one last slide. I've got 3 minutes before this video kind of caps out. This is for post-graduation. Wait to buy a new car. Dr. Altman's, if any of you have him, always says this, wait. Do not graduate and go out and buy a brand new car. Now, if you're driving a clunker, you might need a new car, but you don't need a 2019, 2020 fully loaded car. Okay. Get established, get settled, and it goes to some of these other points. And I'd say the same for a house. Just wait. Give yourself a couple years to get established. But don't wait to save for retirement. Go ahead and start saving for retirement immediately. Markets go up and they go down based on the economy. We all know Social Security is a little bit in danger. So you need to start saving for retirement. Put in the max that you can put in if you can afford to do that. And every company, every state, they all have different kind of requirements, but investigate what those are and start saving. And it's really nice if you just have that money automatically pulled from your account and put into whatever savings you're using, so you never even see it. It makes it less painful. Create a budget and use it. Stick to it, okay? You can find budgets anywhere. Some people use Dave Ramsey as kind of the golden standard, but make a budget and then stick to it and force yourself to stick to it. It'll pay off if you get in that habit. You won't fall into debt. And then because you're using your budget, you will have money to buy that fully loaded car later if that's what you want. You also need to be putting money towards an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months. I say even 6 to 12 is better based on our last recession and the fact that we know another one is coming. But an emergency fund means 3 months of all of the money you would need for your bills. So if you can live off of $2,000 a month in your new job, you need to have at least $6,000 saved up before you start thinking about that car and other items. Again, I say go for 6 months to a year. You just never know what you might need. And then be informed. Stay informed about the news. Stay informed about your finances. When you get those packets that explain, your estimate of benefits for a procedure you had done with healthcare, read it. Make sure there's no discrepancies. Keep up with the stock market vaguely so you know what's happening. Career-wise, stay up to date. If there's new technology being used, there's conferences that you could go to learn new ways to do things, go. Be informed. It's going to make you a much more valuable asset to your company, and it's going to help you financially and career-wise. So I'll wrap it up because we do only get 15 minutes for these videos, but I hope this helped at least a couple of y'all.